There are lots of financial talking heads out there, but there's only one who's local to Tucson. Welcome to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner, and he's here to help you with your financial questions. Today, we'll try to educate you about the financial world and encourage you to think of solutions to your financial goals. So, let's get started. Saving with Silverman starts now.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ryan Stutz along with Mark Silverman, your certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates in Tucson. And Mark's the guy who he doesn't come down here every weekend and talk about money on the radio and then go back to wherever you came from. He lives in Tucson from here, cares about the community, cares about you wherever you are. And here's the way you can get in touch with Mark's office, 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. You can call, or if you prefer, you can text to that number, 520-333-7601. And Mark Silverman, always fun to do this show with you, and I hope you've had an outstanding week.
So far, it's been a great week, and I'm happy to be here as always, and looking forward to discussing some more topics.
Well, today, let's talk about 401k rollovers. We often talk about the importance of not leaving a 401k with your old company after you no longer work there. And there's so many people who change jobs and do exactly that. They leave it there, kind of forget about it, and that's certainly not the best thing that you should do. What are the main benefits of rolling an old 401k into an IRA?
Sure, Ron, and let me just say this. This actually would apply if you have a 403B, a 457, and as well as a TSP, thrift savings plan. So these all kind of tie in together. So this would apply to all those sorts of things. But there's lots of different choices. And I think some of the big benefits of doing something like that is, one, you're giving yourself a lot more investment choices. So instead of maybe the 5 or 10, mutual fund options that you have with your current or old 401k, I should say, old retirement plan is actually more proper. I think what you want to do is look and see if you rolled it if you do it properly and roll it to what's known as a self-directed IRA, you open up what your investment options are. You're not just limited to mutual funds. You can do individual securities. You can do exchange-traded funds, ETFs, which I'm a bigger fan of over mutual funds, and I've said that before. So there's lots of different things. You can have an advisor, such as ourselves or anybody else, help you with those choices, so you have more access to it. You're not dealing with your old HR company, so that's usually a huge benefit for a lot of people. And you can also eliminate the fees. There's tons of hidden fees in these retirement plans that companies offer. And if you ask your old human resource person what the fees are in that plan, they'll tell you, Ron. They don't even know. They'll give you a range, which is never a good sign. So you can Google, cost of a 401k or cost of a company retirement plans, and you can get an estimate as far as what those fees might be. So there's lots of hidden fees and those sorts of things. So you can help get a handle on that and reduce some of those fees potentially as well.
Well, Mark, let me ask you this. What are the tax implications of doing a rollover like that?
Sure. If you do it properly, and you're doing a rollover or a transfer, there's no tax implications, because basically what you're doing is you're not taking a distribution from it. You're rolling it from one plan to another. And so there should be, if it's done properly, there should be no tax consequences to you.
What options do people have for rolling over their 401k while they're still working for the company? They haven't left, and they want to do something different. What can they do?
Sure. So there's a term called in-service distribution or in-service withdrawal. They're the same thing. But it depends on the type of company. We've had some employees from certain companies where they can take the vested portion of their 401k, which is usually the bulk of it, and roll it into a self-directed IRA for us to manage or somebody else to manage. And, those typically happen at age 59 and a half. So if you're over 59 and a half, this is usually an option you can do. But like I said, there are companies that allow you to do it even after age 50. So it just depends on the company and the plan. But these are things that you could find out about and see what your options are. Doesn't mean you have to do it, but you should know what your options are. And there's a lot of benefits to doing this versus keeping it where it is currently.
Mark Silverman is your certified financial planner professional at Silverman and Associates, and his process is called the Financial Physical. Just like you go to the doctor for a physical on a regular basis, you might want to reassess what you're doing, at least get a second opinion. And to do that, you can call 520-333-7601. Arrange to get on the calendar and come in for a face-to-face visit. Mark Silverman can help you. 520-333-7601. No obligation attached. You're not hiring him as your financial advisor when you make that phone call or come in for a visit. You can walk away if you like, but you're going to glean a lot of great information. And the number to call or text is 520-333-7601. We're talking about 401k rollovers on today's edition of Saving with Silverman. Mark, how do you determine what kind of investment you should be rolling your 401k into when you make some kind of a transfer?
Well, hopefully you're working with an advisor that's qualified, that's done your risk assessment, looked at your goals and objectives of what you're trying to accomplish, because you could roll it into lots of different things. You could roll it into a portfolio, again, of stocks, of bonds, of mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, those sorts of things. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But again, that's part of the process of working with someone who's willing to do an assessment to make sure that it's being rolled over into something that's going to improve your situation, not hinder it. And so if they haven't done that and they're just trying to sell you a product, that might not be in your best interest. So you want to make sure that they're aligned, that they have an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, that they're looking to do what's, again, in your best interest, not theirs.
Mark, every day more and more people are going to your website, savingwithsilverman.com. That is savingwithsilverman.com. And they can certainly get a lot of information from there. But I know that there are some folks listening to the show out there today who are saying, it's time for me to stop procrastinating. It's time for me to go ahead and make that phone call and get in touch with Mark Silverman and come in for a visit. Why not? What do you have to offer those folks?
Sure, Ron. So, so whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense, resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me. Done here in my office to go through the process, again, we call the financial physical, as Ron said earlier. I can assure you I will not be trying to sell you investment products. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. This is a great opportunity to finally see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have it, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets. And we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making that happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 10 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. You can do something right now that will impact your quality of life right away. 520-333-7601 is your number to call, or you can text if you're more comfortable doing that. That'll put you in touch with Mark Silverman, certified financial planner professional with Silverman and Associates. And of course, if you want to check out the website, do so, savingwithsilverman.com. But again, that all-important phone number, 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. Ron Stutz here, along with Mark Silverman, the star of our show, and we'll have more coming up.
Planning for retirement shouldn't be a mystery. So why is it so easy to get bogged down with financial terms and advisors who try to offer you a sales pitch? At Silverman and Associates, Mark Silverman and his team take pride in looking after their clients' best interests. Schedule a complimentary review of your situation. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
Learn the path to a worry-free retirement. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. This is Ron Stutz. I have the opportunity to be with Mark Silverman on this show, and we appreciate your being here with us today as well. Saving with Silverman is all about making sure that you can make all the right decisions when you're preparing for your retirement. Everybody wants a retirement where they can have peace of mind and not have to lie awake at night wondering if they're going to outlive their money. That's a horrible fear, a horrible thing to happen. Mark Silverman can help you make sure you avoid that. Again, your Saving with Silverman number is 520-333-7601. Call or text. That's 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman has something called the Financial Physical to check up and reassess where you are, and you can come in to meet with him and get that financial physical. You can do that for absolutely no cost at all, no obligation. 520-333-7601. Mark, let's talk about retirement planning myths. You know, there's so much information out there, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. You hear some things, some people say things that, you know, they sound like they really know what they're talking about, but sometimes there's no sense at all to what they're saying. There's an almost endless list of retirement planning myths that need to be debunked. And so we can do it on this show today. So maybe you can go ahead and debunk this statement I'm about to make here. Don't touch the principal, live off the interest. What's wrong with that statement?
Well, you know, I think certain generations that used to be possible when interest rates were a lot higher. Now, when you're looking at interest rates, and yeah, they've come up a little bit, but they're still, you know, relatively speaking, very, very low. So if you're looking at interest rates in the 2, 3, 4% range of a safe bond, for example, for something that's a high-grade bond, whether it be a government or a high-grade corporate or something along those lines, it makes it very, very tough. So the days of living just off the interest, are they possible? You know, if you've got millions of dollars and you know, can live off just the interest, yeah, that might be possible. But for the average person, I think it's very, very tough. So we have to come up with different solutions. So, you know, the mindset's different now with interest rates not in the 6 or 7% range or even higher for some of you that might be listening. It makes it a lot tougher. So we just have to think outside the box and come up with different plans and different strategies to make that work.
Now, the more a financial plan weighs, the more valuable it is. That sounds like a really silly statement, actually, but what do you think of that?
Not necessarily, but you also, I've seen what people have come in meeting with other advisors and they say, I already have a financial plan. They bring it in and it's a glorified Excel spreadsheet, basically, which is just a sales tool for that advisor to sell them a product, insurance or investment product. And I that's not a plan. A financial plan, it shouldn't be, hundreds of pages or thousands of pages either. But I think it's got to be comprehensive. It's got to cover lots of different areas, not just the investment management, but it's got to have an income plan, a tax plan, an estate plan, insurance planning, legacy planning, all these different things that we talk about. It's got a, long-term care planning. It's got to be very, very comprehensive. It should address all the different areas, not just one. If it's only addressing one area, which a lot of advisors out there are basically, for the lack of a better term, one-trick ponies. They're just focused on selling annuities, or they're just focused on selling investment products or the investment management. You've got to have someone that understands how all these pieces work together, that can advise you, that knows your whole situation. If they only know one part or they're only focused on one part, how good is that advice really? So I think it's important that it shouldn't just be one page, but it should be simple enough to where you can understand it, or you have an advisor that's willing to go through that process with you. But it doesn't mean it has to be, hundreds of pages or anything like that. But they're pretty substantial. We do a comprehensive plan for someone. It's somewhere between 50 to 70 pages of information. Doesn't mean we're going through each page, but we'll go through the key areas so that they can understand that all the different areas that we've addressed and assessed for them to make sure that they're going to be financially independent, financially successful.
We're talking about some popular myths that are out there, sometimes not true, and Mark Silverman is debunking some of these myths. And here's another one for you, Mark, on Saving with Silverman. Thank you very much for listening, by the way, and we'll give you that number to call in just a moment here. My life is simple, so a will is all that I need to have my affairs in order. I'm sure you've had people tell you that. Is that true or not true?
We've seen both sides of it, to be honest with you, Ron. I've seen people come in that just have a will. I've had people come in that don't even have a will. So, it's something that we address where, again, we're not here to try to beat people up, but you should at least have a will, not just for your sake, but for your kids, grandkids, et cetera. You should have at least a will at a bare minimum. Sometimes situations are more complex where they maybe need a trust, a living trust, or whatever it might be. Some people don't need a trust. And I've seen people come in with trust that, we ask more questions. Technically, they really don't need a trust. They were sold something they don't need. In some cases, people don't have a trust and need a trust. So it just depends on what they're trying to accomplish, what their estate plan is. And people's situations evolve. Maybe they didn't need it in the beginning. Now maybe they do. Maybe they needed a trust in the beginning. Now maybe they don't. So we'll work with clients on many different levels. Again, I work with I have relationships with estate planning attorneys, elder law attorneys here in town, as well as tax people. So we work as a team approach. So it's really making sure that we're providing the best advice we can for people looking at their overall situation. But, you need to have somebody assess everything and see what you're trying to accomplish so that we can give you the advice that you need that's going to put yourself in a better position.
Saving with Silverman, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call that number, get on the calendar, or you can send a text to that number and just leave your contact information, 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman is the president of Silverman and Associates in Tucson. If you'd like to come in, that's the number to make it happen, 520-333-7601. We're debunking some myths that are out there today, and here's one I think Mark's going to shoot down right away. Mark, what if somebody says to you, my spouse is going to be fine when I'm gone. He or she will only need half as much income anyway. What's your reaction to that?
You're absolutely right, Ron. We come across this a lot, especially when it comes to pensions. And not a lot of people have pensions, but we do come across it where people have pensions. And for those of you that have pensions, who've already elected them, that when you chose to take that pension, you had some different options. You could take it just on your life, or you could take it on you and your spouse's life. And even in certain cases, you could take a percentage that your spouse would get versus how much you were getting. And which one do you take, which one you don't take? If you didn't spend a lot of time on it, you probably wish now that you did. That's a regret what we see a lot of people have. And that's a decision you can't change once you've made that decision. So this is something we help clients with when they come in to see us and analyzing which is the best option for them in their situation. So this comes true with Social Security. If the spouse is getting a Social Security and something happens to the other person, they would lose one of those Social Securities. Yes, they would get the higher amount, but then they lose that other amount. So we need to figure out how we're going to replicate or get that income back when the other person passes away. So this is a big one that we really need to sit down and think about to understand what their expenses are, what they need in retirement, what the expenses might look like without the other person, and really help determine that. And by the way, the expenses usually stay about the same. They're not decreased in half like some people might think. So it's an important discussion to have, and we really need to figure out how that other spouse is going to continue on with the income and the bills and those sorts of things. And so that's really what we're trying. And we find that a lot of people haven't put a lot of time into it. They've thought about it, but like you said, Ron, that they feel that the other spouse will be fine when they're gone because there's other assets. Maybe yes, maybe no, but we really need to dig deeper and understand how that's going to work. And so especially if spouses are different ages, we know that women outlive men typically. So, all these types of things we really need to sit down and discuss.
I don't know how in the world anybody would get the idea that your expenses are only going to be half as much when one of you is gone anyway. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Some people think that. They say 60 to 70% in some cases, but I can tell you it's usually closer to 100%. Mm-hmm. The only thing you're really saving is food.
Yeah, that's true. Because you still got to pay for the electricity and, other things. So
exactly.
The phone's going to be as much and everything else probably. One more for you. When I retire, I need to dramatically shift from stocks to bonds in my portfolio. True or not true?
I would say not true. I mean, you might need a shift, but not dramatically. Depending on when you're retiring, you still need growth. And we just talked about living off the interest. Bonds are an important part of people's portfolios, but interest rates are low. So what's going to give you the growth? It's having some equity exposure. Not everybody needs equity exposure, but most people do. It could be a smaller extent, but it's important to understand where you are in retirement. Do you have 20 years? Do you have 30 years? Some people might even have 40 years in retirement. So you need growth. Because again, you have that inflation that we have to overcome, and we use 3% in our practice, but that number might continue to grow as well. And so it's important to understand that. And so when we build plans for people, we are looking at specifically at everybody's situation and building a plan that's custom to what's going on with them or what they're trying to accomplish. And so it's not just one size fits all and everybody gets the same thing. And so just saying that I'm going to shift from stocks to bonds when I retire, you should be making that shift as you're getting closer to retirement, if you're working with an advisor or if you're doing it yourself, you should be making that shift gradually, because people tend to become more conservative the closer they get into retirement, and certainly when they get into retirement. Not everybody, but most of the time that's the case.
Mark, here on Saving with Silverman, I'm going to give you that phone number again in just a moment, but what happens for those folks who decide to make that phone call?
Sure, Ron. And what I'm going to do is, I've done this in the past. The first offer I'm going to make out is a white paper that I wrote, which is the top 10 mistakes people make in retirement. This is something that I wrote of mistakes I've seen in my 20 plus years of doing this. And my goal is to not see you make that mistake. So if anybody's interested, all you have to do is call us or send us a text. I need your full name as well as your email address. So please make sure you get that to us correctly, and we will get that white paper out to you. There's no cost, no obligation, anything like that. Happy to do that. But for those of you that want to get to know us better, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through our process, which we call the financial physical. Do you know what you're paying for your investments? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you always envision? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. This sounds a lot different than the other shows on the radio, doesn't it? In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. This is now your opportunity to see what it looks like to work with someone who is actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This initial meeting will be valuable to you, whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware, we've mentioned it several times, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We do try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 7 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call that number or send a text to that number. Doesn't matter. Just get in touch. 1-520-333-7601. That'll put you in touch with Silverman and Associates. Mark Silverman, of course, is your certified financial planner professional and the president of Silverman and Associates in Tucson, serving all of the southern Arizona area. You can check out the website at savingwithsilverman.com. But again, that all-important phone number, 520-333-7601. You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. And there's more coming up.
At Silverman and Associates, we believe you deserve a financial plan that's customized to your situation. That's because no one strategy could possibly fit your unique needs and goals. From strategizing to execution, our goal is to give you undivided attention. Come in for a visit today and learn what it looks like to put your retirement dreams into action. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
It's time to get to know Mark Silverman just a little bit better here on Saving with Silverman.
You're listening to Saving with Silverman. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman of Silverman and Associates. And this is the portion of the show we call Getting to Know You. We want you to have the opportunity to get to know Mark Silverman as much as you possibly can. Get to know him up close and personal. And Mark, I know that you've seen the movie Groundhog Day. Is that correct?
I have. It's been a while, but I have seen it.
I've seen it over and over and over again.
Just like the movie.
No pun intended. Just like Bill Murray hearing I Got You, Babe on the radio every morning in Groundhog Day. If you had to wake up to the same song every morning, what song would you pick?
Ooh,
I can't wait to find out the answer to this.
Wow. This is going to sound really cheesy. I just thought of this, though. If I had more time, I could probably come up with something more clever. How about The Best Is Yet to Come by Frank Sinatra?
Oh, really? Wow. Man, my goodness.
Always trying to improve, you know? Isn't that the goal?
You're seeing the glass half full for sure.
Always, always. Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. Are you a big Frank Sinatra fan?
I do like Frank Sinatra. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I do like Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. That'll tell you a little bit about Mark Silverman. If he had to wake up every morning and hear the same song, he would pick The Best Is Yet to Come by Old Blue Eyes. So maybe that'll happen for you one day, just like it did with Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. So who knows? Hey, Mark, thanks a lot. And there's more coming up on Saving with Silverman in a moment.
You've got questions. We've got answers. Keep listening to Saving with Silverman.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is the star of our show. He is a certified financial planning professional at Silverman and Associates. And Mark, of course, loves it when you tune in. We have a lot of folks who've been listening to the show for a very long time. You may have just joined us on the radio, and here's what it's all about. Mark has a lot of good advice, a lot of good generic information to pass along to you on the radio show, but can't really get specific when it comes to any kind of investment advice without knowing more about your situation. And we're all different. Everybody's situation is unique. That's why it's so important to reach out with this number, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. Call or text to that number, and then you can come in for a visit, 520-333-7601. Now, that visit is not going to cost you a penny. You'll be under absolutely no obligation. You know, Mark, anytime the market is moving in a downward direction, we see people react in various ways. And I wonder if you will take a moment and tell us what you would say to people reacting in certain ways that I'm going to list here. We're talking about market corrections, this segment of the show. First of all, over trading. How do people react into over trading, and how do they react in that situation?
Sure, Ron, and let me say this. We haven't really seen a lot of market downturns recently, but we are due. I don't know if it's this year, next year, or the following year, but we are due. You know, this is the second longest bull market in the history. So just keep that in mind as a perspective. I constantly reminding my clients this. So, you know, over trading, you know, people trying to outsmart the market by predicting what the highs are and the lows are. And I can tell you, I've been doing this a long time. Anybody that tells you they can do that, you need to run, because they can't. It's like picking lottery numbers. So, you know, you've got to be disciplined. You've got to understand the risk that you're taking and what your goals are and the time horizon, all these sorts of things. And if you don't know what you're doing, that's why you want to seek out a professional. But, you know, over trading is never a good idea. And so anybody that tells you that they can do this on a regular, consistent basis and they're making money every day and they never take any losses and they never experience any losses is quite honestly lying to you.
Well, Mark, here's another one that's going to kind of lend itself to the same kind of answer, I think. Some people panic, and I know that dealing with you and having you help them is going to help folks avoid panicking and making some really silly decisions.
True. And I mean, that's the benefit of working with someone and having somebody there that when you are getting a little bit worried about the markets or you see a downturn in your account or you're not sure what's going on, somebody that you know and trust that you could reach out to. There was a study that was done a couple of years ago. Vanguard did it and basically said that the value a good advisor can bring when you look at the taxes and, you know, keeping you from making poor decisions or panicking, if you will, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3% per year, which is very, very impressive. For those of you that know numbers, that's very, very impressive. And you could just Google that. It was an article that Vanguard came out with. And they're a good firm, but a low-cost leader. So they're telling you that good advisors, can really add some value to. But panicking is one of them. You know, emotions get involved. If you look at, there was another study that was done which showed, you know, what the market's return or mutual funds return versus what actual investors' returns were, and they're significantly different because people get in and out at the wrong times. So that's why it's important to have somebody there to help you.
Mark, I just talked to you a few minutes ago about how everybody's situation is different and people have different personalities and different reactions to things, to market corrections. There's some folks who just want to put their heads in the sand and ignore everything.
There is. And, you know, I think I've probably mentioned this story. This is a while back. This is after the last crash, right afterwards. And she was a widow. And she came into my office and brought me all the statements. They were still in the envelope sealed. And I, asked permission to open them. And she goes, sure, go ahead. And she must have had probably a year or two's worth of statements there. And she hadn't even opened them. And, I was opening them and the numbers kept getting worse and worse. And I said, if you would have opened these, we could have prevented a lot of this, when you first opened them. And she goes, I knew it was bad. I just didn't know how bad and I didn't want to know, but which is unfortunate because we could have prevented some of those losses. Yeah, the markets came back, but she did take a big loss with her current advisor and she never even looked at the stuff or even reached out to the advisor. And, the advisor didn't reach out to her either, kind of in her defense. But, some people do want to put their head in the sand and just hope everything works out, but that's not the right thing. You owe it to not just you, but your family and your children, et cetera, to make sure you're making the best decisions you can. So, just get educated.
We're talking about market corrections on today's show. We're going to talk about overconfidence and market timing in just a moment here on Saving with Silverman. But here's your phone number, 520-333-7601. Now, a lot of phone calls come in at the end of the show, so don't wait until then. Go ahead and call right now, 520-333-7601. You can call or you can simply send a text. Just include your contact information and someone in Mark's office will get back with you. And you can come in and sit down face-to-face and talk with Mark Silverman about your situation. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text and make that happen. Well, what about overconfidence? I know that you've dealt with a lot of people over the years who are just too overconfident about their investments and about the market in general. How do you keep those folks from going off the deep end?
Well, we see it a lot right now because of the fact that we're in such a long, really bull market. I said this just a few minutes ago about this is the second longest bull market in the history of the market. So you've got to be a little bit cautious. And yes, it will come back. If you're younger, there's nothing to worry about. However, if you're within 5 or 10 years from retirement, you do want to think about that, because if you ask people that retired in, say, 2007 versus people that retired in, say, 2009, 2010, they had different experiences because of the fact of where we were in relation to the market highs. And so the last thing you want to do is be close to retirement, and then we have a huge correction in the market that lasts, who knows, a year or 2 years, and you're withdrawing out of those accounts. Yes, it will come back, but when it does come back, you don't have the same amount of money in there because you've been drawing on that to live. It's like a double-edged sword. So it's important to understand where you are, and if you're already in retirement, that's even worse because you're not even adding to your accounts. If you're working, it's a different story. So I think it's important to understand the overconfidence, can come back and bite you depending on where you are in relation to your retirement. If you're already retired or you're close to retirement, you need to be a little bit more cautious. Again, if you're younger and you're listening, I would say it's not something you probably have to worry about, but you really do need to understand that.
Well, here's another thing that a lot of folks do, and that is timing the market. I know from having talked to you so many times before, you can't really do that. There's some people who try to pull their money out and put it in cash at the right time and then try to get back in again at the right time to ride it back up. And that's really difficult to do, isn't it?
It's impossible. We just kind of talked about this. I think the first one was that overtrading, Ron.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So overtrading, market timing, I think they're all kind of related. People try to predict where the market's going. A lot of people thought we were due for a correction, and I still think we are, but the markets continue to go up. So who knows if this is going to continue for another year, 2, 3, 4, who knows? But we are due for a correction. So again, trying to time the market is a bad situation. Any advisor that can tell you that they can accurately predict when to get in and out of the market they're lying to you. They can't. So again, it's important that you have a disciplined approach and you're taking the right amount of risk that you're comfortable taking, 1, and 2, that's going to keep you on track to achieving your goals or maintaining your goals, whatever it might be. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. There is no silver bullet in what we're doing, but you have to do the proper planning and have somebody that's willing to work with you and evaluate your overall situation, not just look at your, which money you have and what they can sell you.
Mark, if you would, take a moment and explain what the financial physical is all about and what you have to offer folks who go ahead and make that phone call.
Sure, Ron. So, again, whether you're a first-time listener to the show or you've heard me for a long time, if anything I've said makes sense or resonates with you, this is now your chance to come in and have a conversation with me in my office to go through what Ron just mentioned, which we call the financial physical. And I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting, which is a lot different than all the other shows that are on the radio. Rather, we'll discuss your values and goals in a way, honestly, you probably never have. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. This is a great opportunity to finally see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. As part of the financial physical, we will discuss your cash reserves, debt if you have any, insurance, all types, and how to best allocate your assets, and we'll even benchmark where you are now financially compared to where you want to be, so you have an even better perspective of what's required to achieve your goals for the reasons that are important to you. This becomes the foundation for developing a plan that gives you the highest probability of making this happen. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware by now, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP such as myself can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 5 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Go ahead and call right now, 520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Simply leave your contact information. A member of the team will get back with you, and you can set a time to come in that's convenient. Come into Tucson to Mark Silverman's office, sit down and have a conversation about all this kind of stuff. And there's no obligation at all. It's not going to cost you anything, and it's not going to be a sales pitch. There's no high pressure involved at all. It's just a conversation, really. 520-333-7601 is your number to call or text and make it happen. You're listening to the Saving with Silverman. By the way, the website address is savingwithsilverman.com. That's savingwithsilverman.com. I'm Ron Stutz. I have the pleasure of being on the show with Mark Silverman. Saving with Silverman. We'll be right back.
Mark Silverman is a lifelong Arizonan, and his firm is based right here in Tucson. When you come in for a visit, you can expect someone who's familiar with your community. At Silverman & Associates, our relationship with you is most important to us. We want to build you a financial plan that's unique to your goals. No generic products, no corporate red tape, just friendly folks looking to give you a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. Come in for a visit today and let us help you build a meaningful retirement. Call or text 520-333-7601. That's 520-333-7601.
If you've ever asked yourself what a well-balanced financial portfolio looks like, keep listening to Saving with Silverman, and you'll find out.
Welcome back to Saving with Silverman. Mark Silverman is the star of our show. He's on this show every week talking about making smart choices about your money because it impacts the quality of your life. Mark Silverman, in case you haven't heard, in case you're new to the show, is a certified financial planner professional, the president of Silverman & Associates in Tucson. He's not just a guy who comes down here every week and does a radio show. He lives in Tucson, lives, breathes, eats, and sleeps in Tucson, and cares about the folks around here. Has helped so many individuals and so many families with their investments and their preparations for retirement, and can certainly help you as well. All you have to do to start that process is call this number, 520-333-7601. That is 520-333-7601. And if you don't want to call, you can certainly text. It's that easy. No obligation, no cost. Set up a visit. Come in and have a conversation with Mark Silverman. Mark, as always, we have some great questions that have come in on the request line. First of all, Roger in Green Valley says, I've had some losses in my IRA recently. Nothing huge, but it still makes me nervous. My broker says he's not worried about it because everything goes up in the long run. But I'm 60 years old, and I'm not sure he understands my sense of urgency. Is he right? Should I just chill out?
Well, Roger, I appreciate you being a listener, and thanks for the question. You know, you shouldn't be really experiencing a lot of losses recently. The market's gone up. Yeah, we had a little hiccup not too long ago, but the markets have been coming back. Again, I don't know if you're currently retired. I know you said you're 60 years old, and I don't know if you're already retired or you're close to retirement. But if it's making you nervous, that should be an issue that your advisor should be addressing. Just because you're at a certain age or a certain a certain amount of money, everything should be addressed. If it's a concern for you, it should be a concern for your advisor, and they should be addressing that, or at least explaining it to you to give you some peace of mind to understand where you are. Are you still on track for your goals? My guess is you probably don't really have a financial plan. If you had a financial plan, then you would see if you're still on track or not, which would help certainly put you at ease knowing that you're on track for your goals, even if you experience a loss on your account, because that's really what it comes down to. But if they're just focusing on the investment management and telling you everything is going to turn around, it's a paper loss and everything goes up, that's not a good answer in my opinion. So if you want to come in and have a consultation, I'm happy to offer that to you. Come in and we can assess the risk of what you're comfortable taking. We have actually a process where we can pinpoint the level of risk that you're comfortable taking and actually show you with your current investments without even moving accounts how much risk you're actually taking. And we can actually back test it and show you how much you would lose if we had another correction, those sorts of things, which is it's a great exercise to do. And I'm happy to do that with you. So again, I think if your concerns aren't being addressed and you're kind of just getting blown off, if you will, I think it's important that you have another conversation, or at least seek a second opinion.
Well, certainly, Roger, I'd like to add just one more thing here. When your broker says he's not worried about it because everything goes up in the long run, he's certainly right. Things do go up in the long run. But if you're 60 years old, you might not have the time for that to happen. Right, Mark?
If you're you're absolutely right, Ron. I mean, if you're close to retirement, or let's say you're retired already, or you're retiring at 62 or 65, you should be concerned because you can't afford, and I've said this is, I think, the third time now, this is the second longest bull market that we've had. So you should be worried that we should have a correction. Not saying you want to get out of the market completely, but you should be aware of where we are and making sure that you're taking the appropriate amount of risk and what your downside is with your account.
Okay, let's go to Swarita. We have a question from Gretchen. And Gretchen says, I just lost my job and will probably be without income for a few months while I find the next job. Is this a good time to do a Roth conversion since I won't have as much income this year as I normally do?
Well, Gretchen, great question, and thanks for being a listener. I like where your mind is going, and I'm sorry you've lost your job. It might potentially be a time to do a Roth conversion. However, hopefully you've done some planning in that if you're working with someone or you're doing it yourself, you've set up an adequate emergency fund, which is usually 3 to 6 months worth of expenses to cover these sorts of things. If you're out of a job for a few months, so you can cover those expenses, so you're not, drawing into retirement accounts. I know, Gretchen, you didn't say how old you are, so I don't know if you're prior to 59 and a half, where you can withdraw those accounts without penalties and taxes and that sort of thing, or if you're over that amount. But hopefully you have an adequate emergency fund, again, which is important. I can't stress that enough. So I find so many people that don't have an adequate emergency fund, or in some cases, some people have too much of an emergency fund where their assets aren't growing or keeping pace with inflation. So it's important, you may want to do a Roth conversion. It's something you don't have to think about today. You could think about it later in the year, depending on what type of job you get and what your tax bracket is. But I do like that you're proactively thinking about doing Roth conversions, which is an important strategy tool that we use here in our office as well. But it's important to understand, that you need to find a job. That's probably your primary concern, but doing a Roth conversion can be done later in the year, again, depending on your situation. That's a conversation you want to have with your advisor if you have one, a CPA if you have one, those sorts of things.
Saving with Silverman is the name of our show. Mark Silverman is your certified financial planner professional. I'm Rod Stutz. And one more question today in the mailbag. This is from Bill in Rita Ranch. Bill says, I was planning to work for one more year and then retire, but I'm now hearing that we might have some layoffs and I could be offered a severance package equal to 1 year's salary. So that actually seems like it would be great news since I was only going to work another year anyway. Am I dumb for hoping that I get laid off at this point?
Well, Bill, great question, and thanks for being a valued listener. It really depends on your plan. Again, I don't know your age and what your situation is, and if you have a financial plan, we can tell you, with a high level of predictability, whether you're going to be okay or you're going to run out of money or not. And so that's why it's important that you've done some planning before you make these sorts of decisions. And this is something we do with people all the time, is really looking at when they are planning on retiring, or if they're offered these packages, what that package looks like, to making sure that they could have what we call a work optional lifestyle, meaning going back to work because you want to, not because you have to, or staying retired and maybe doing something else or traveling or playing golf, whatever it might be. So it's important that you have somebody run these numbers for you to see what it looks like, because maybe you can retire with this package, maybe you can't, and maybe even working one more year you can't. It's depending on what you're going to need in retirement. If you're married, what's your spouse? Are they retired? Are they going to plan on retiring? Or maybe they're already retired. What you plan on doing in retirement? All these sorts of things are conversations that you need to have. We're happy to have those with you or have them with somebody that's qualified that can run these numbers for you and build a plan that's specific to you and your needs and tell you if you're going to be on track or not on track and pointing out different things. But great question.
Mark, I know that, the questions that we got today, great questions from Roger, Gretchen, and Bill. And there are a lot of other folks out there who have questions. And if they'd like to come in and have a conversation with you, what actually happens after they make that phone call that I'm going to give you the number again in just a moment here, but what happens when they come into your office?
Sure, Ron. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer that white paper again before I go into what would happen in the office. But I wrote a white paper recently called The Top 10 Mistakes People Make in Retirement. This is something that I've seen happen over the last 20 plus years of being in the business and mistakes I've seen people make. My hope, of course, is to see that whether you're already retired or planning on retiring at some point, that you don't make these same mistakes. So I'm happy to provide this white paper. What we do require is your full name as well as your full email address. You can call us or text us. We'll get that white paper out to you. No strings attached, nothing like that. For those of you that want to get to know us a little bit better, just like you get a second opinion on your health, why wouldn't you get a second opinion on your wealth? So whether you're do-it-yourself or already working with someone, this is now your chance to go through the process, which Ron just mentioned, which we call the financial physical. Do you know what your investments are costing you? If you're still working, are you on track to have the type of retirement you have always envisioned? Or if you're already retired, do you know if you or your spouse are at risk of running out of money while trying to maintain your current lifestyle? I can assure you, I will not be trying to sell you investment or insurance products. I repeat, this is not a sales meeting. So this is totally different than everybody else that's on the radio that I've heard. In this initial meeting, we'll address issues of importance to you, provide an overall view of your situation, and give you some general advice on what needs to be completed. This consultation is designed for both individuals as well as couples. However, if you are married, it is mandatory that both spouses attend this initial meeting. This is now your chance to finally see what it looks like to work with someone who's actually required to have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for your best interest at all times. This meeting will be valuable to you whether or not we decide to work together. There is no cost or obligation for this initial appointment. However, it is best suited for people who have saved at least $250,000. And as you probably are aware at this point, I am a certified financial planner professional, and the going hourly rate to meet with a CFP, such as myself, can cost as much as $300 an hour. So this is a tremendous value and chance to finally get your financial house in order and keep it that way. And your only commitment is an hour or so of your time. Just as you want to reach a healthy life from a physical standpoint, you also want to reach and maintain great financial health. So our financial physical is just what the doctor ordered. We try our best to help everyone. However, our slots do fill up quickly. So I can only guarantee a complimentary meeting for the next 3 people that contact us right now. Please don't procrastinate because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
520-333-7601. Call or text 520-333-7601. Mark Silverman, of course, your certified financial planner professional, the president of Silverman and Associates in Tucson, serving not only Tucson but the surrounding area. SavingWithSilverman.com is the website. Check it out, SavingWithSilverman.com, and that's the name of our show, Saving with Silverman. Again, that phone number, 520-333-7601. I'm Ron Stutz along with Mark Silverman. Mark, it's been a pleasure being on the show today, and I know you're going to have an outstanding week.
I'm always happy to be here, Ron. I want to wish everybody a great week and hopefully got some value from listening to the show today.
Join us again next time for the next edition of Saving with Silverman.
Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities product, service, or investment strategy. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified advisor, tax professional, or attorney before implementing any strategy or recommendation discussed herein.